Crouse. Werewolves and newborns and vampires. Oh my. The second to last of the Twilight Saga, Eclipse, is jam-packed with supernatural creatures, a revenge plot, a love triangle, and teen angst. At a solid 2 hours, it's filled to overflowing with the deep, dark, gothic romance that made these movies a must-see for every teenager on the planet. It's also the most cinematically satisfying installment of the franchise so far. Love is complicated, but particularly when you are a human in love with a vampire and a werewolf. Part 3 of the saga finds Bella, played by Kristen Stewart, forced to make a decision between her love for Edward Cullen, once again played by Robert Pattinson, and her deep friendship and possible love for Jacob, played by Taylor Lautner. Meanwhile, the flame-haired vampire Victoria, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, wants to avenge the death of her lover James at the hands of Edward, so she puts together a vicious army of newborn vampires to seek out and destroy not only the Cullen family, but Bella as well. War is waged, declarations of love are made, and the climax is something the Twihards have been anticipating for some time. Now, unlike Harry Potter, another teen-oriented literary adaptation, the Twilight story is mostly self-contained. There is a backstory, but the movies pretty much stand on their own. There are some odd moments and a reference or two to the Volturi that might leave non-Twihards scratching their heads, but then again, very few of the unfaithful will probably ever see this movie. Like Harry Potter, Twilight begins and ends with its characters, and luckily for us, the characters are evolving as the story continues. Not to worry, Twihards, brooding is still the main sentiment on display, but for the first time, Edward and Jacob make self-aware jokes. As Bella and Eddie approach a half-naked Jacob, the vampire says, "Doesn't he own a shirt?" Now, okay, it's not a great joke, but given the amount of press Taylor Lautner's abs get, it raises a smile. Later, when Jacob throws down the double entendre, "Let's face it, I'm hotter than you," Team Edward may not laugh, but it is a funny line. The guys may have lightened up a tad, but Bella still embodies the spirit of the Twilight story. When she says, "I've always felt out of step," she's speaking for every teenager in the theater suffering from a bad case of the terrible teens. That one line explains much of the popularity of these stories. Teens, and in some cases people who remember what it was like being a teen, know how raging hormones can make you feel misunderstood, like an outsider. It's one of the keys to the success of the series. It really understands its audience. It's also one of the very few teen-oriented films with a prudish attitude towards sex and sexuality. It's about romance and something else you don't hear about very often these days, and that's chastity. Turns out, Edward is old-fashioned, which I guess comes with being over 100 years old, and refuses to have sex with Bella before marriage. It's too late for his soul, he says, but he can protect hers by not taking her virtue. It's a quaint idea, one probably more at home in a Victorian novel than a popular 21st century entertainment, but it does strengthen the romance aspect of the story. The Twilight Saga, Eclipse, is a bit talky. These characters talk about everything before they actually act, but nonetheless, it is the near-perfect mix of teen angst, romance, and crazy supernatural action.
Richard Crouse.